I get to see you a lot, as I mentioned before, in board meetings. And so I see, this G and the passion that G has. And somebody, I was just chatting about you this morning in our talk, and I said, like, I was going to describe G really quickly. I was like, this is somebody who wears his heart on his sleeve. And when you talk about putting the badge on the table, like, that's the kind of passion you put forward. And so I believe in this. And I've seen you do that when we're in Cristo Rey board meetings, and your commitment to those students there. And I see that now with what you're doing with Conectado. And so maybe tell everybody a little bit about that. What it is, the kind of the technology behind it, and what you're bringing together. I think there's some AI in there that I think we could probably spin off into a few other questions. But let's just start with Conectado and the passion you have behind this new project.
Well, I go back to kind of I think it's a culmination of probably 20 years of experience in tech. At Cisco anyway, I've had about 30 years of overall, kind of a tech career, but technology. I was also I think as Ron knows, I founded the ERG at Cisco in 2001 called Conexión. And that ERG is still growing really strong today. It's, 20 something years later, it's still, thriving. But I was also very connected with the community. I was, chair of the Hispanic Technology Executive Council. So it was like of other things, of Cristo Rey, of Empower, which is focused on veterans and young adults. So you look at tech, you look at diversity and inclusion, and you look at community. And I felt like those three pillars intertwined. If I could actually make them part of my daily job of what I do, then that it wasn't quite work for me. It was just like it was almost work meets purpose. Using my platform to define my purpose. And so when I left Cisco, I had this idea that there was a lot of great work going on, but it wasn't connected from the classroom to career to the boardroom. It wasn't quite connected, and I wanted to develop. And I knew because I was on all these boards, but I could see that there was disconnects. So how do you actually use technology to create a connection from the classroom to career to the boardroom? And that's why Conectado connected from the classroom to career to the boardroom, and how we use technology to be the accelerator. So we decided that if we want to go after this younger generation, they're already gamers, they're streamers, they're social. That's how they work. That's how they live. They're digital natives. So we use technologies that would really connect with them, it's basically Conectado is a gaming experience. Instead of going out and shooting someone, your mission is to get from your classroom to career. And that's why we're actually working a lot with this Cristo Rey students to help them in manual mode, because I've seen it for the last decade at Cristo Rey, how they get from classroom to career. And we're starting to see that, Jason, as you know, with some of the Cristo Rey San Jose students who are now working at PepsiCo. They're working at Palo Alto Networks. They're working at Cisco. They're working at Stanford University. So they're now starting to see that, and they're getting those careers. So how do you turn that manual mode into digital mode? Because there's 63 million Latinos in the United States. And of that, there's 18 million students. And so if you start breaking that down even further, just, you go into California. California itself is 56% of the K through 12 students in California are Latino. So our next workforce looks like us, right? And so how do we make sure that California, the fourth largest economy in the world, is prepared for this future workforce? And that's what we're aiming to do with this it's a gaming experience, sort of a metaverse platform, but to really help guide them. And if you could imagine them carrying an AI backpack, and in that AI backpack, I'm starting to add credentials, certifications. I'm starting to go out and search for, instead of having them search for, bringing scholarships, bringing internships, bringing mentorships to them so it's easy to navigate. It's kind of like Waze mapping meets Netflix recommendation engine meets masterclass, and that's kind of what Conectado is, right?
That's awesome. I'm going to ask a question that probably could be a topic unto itself, because you talked a little bit about AI here. I know with friends, young and old. I work at Google now. It's just the topic du jour. I think if you watch CNBC in the morning, a company can't say their earnings without saying that there's somehow AI involved. Whether you're, Home Depot or my old company, HP, AI has to be part of the script. It's everywhere now. There's a common friend of ours, Pete Carrillo, and Pete and I were just talking. I've been getting him on all these podcasts about AI. We can't have a conversation that doesn't include AI. So if we think about the Latino community, just how big it is in California, but how big it is in the United States, if AI is a thing and it's coming in, is it threat or opportunity for our Latino community and for young people coming up?
I think it's huge opportunity, and it's also a threat. And here's why I say it's a threat. If you don't start to develop skills around AI, if you don't start to develop skills around automation. My view is every job will have a tech component to it. And every job then will have some sort of intelligence, artificial, cultural, social. And that intelligence will only continue to go faster. The world will never be as slow as it is right now, if that makes sense. Chat GPT came out in midsummer last year, and by early this year, the next version of Chat GPT was out. And it's like, so what used to take, like if you look at Microsoft, used to do these big releases every, 5 years. Now that time has just shrunk significantly. The next GPT is already being worked on. So it's a huge opportunity. And we as Latinos, I think we're in a great place. I've gone to so many, and I use AI, Web3, and kind of crypto all in sort of a kind of a bucket. And I've been to many panels and events recently, and the talent that is coming from our Latino community that is probably less than 35 years old, probably less than 30 years old, is mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing. And if you look at the numbers are, Latinos are growing faster. We're the second largest demographic. We're entrepreneurs. Well, guess what? This technology is designed perfectly for us, designed for entrepreneurship. And so being able to tackle that, use technology, use data to help us accelerate, to leapfrog. Forget about, big data. Big data's that's all, now it's like faster, more improved, intelligent data. And I think if you're not, I always say if you're not, if you don't want to get displaced by the robot, then figure out how to program the robot. And so that's, I think, what we're doing. I am on the board of Jack in the Box, People ask me, it's like, hey, you're on the board of Blue Shield of California and Jack in the Box. What the heck? Right? It's two extremes. And they're like, you don't look like you Jack in the Box. It's like that. I went through that same kind of dilemma in my head. But when I talked to Jack in the Box, he said, why we want you is for digital transformation. We're going through a whole digital experiential shift. Everything's moving to digital, our ordering, everything. You walk into some of the Jack in the Box stores and you see robots doing the cook frying and so forth, right? So, the robots are doing a lot of this work. And the other thing about Jack in the Box was that the people that are doing that work, 81% of their employees happen to be Latino. And so I'm like, you had me at right? It's like we have 81% Latino, and the strategy of the company is digital. Now, how do we connect that bridge, right?
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And I think you touched upon a lot of things that I wanted to ask you about. And I think if I were to kind of quick summary of, the advice for early career, especially as it relates to technology, is, embrace it, don't be afraid of it, learn how to harness it and use it, whether you're a technologist or not. It's here, and it's going to pervade every part of the economy. Maybe if you can talk a little bit more for those of us that might be more middle to later in our career, and we're thinking about, hey, how do I go from director to VP to SVP, or even to become a CEO? What advice do you have there? And then, beyond digital transformation, what are the other discussions that are happening in the boardroom?
Yeah. So I think, and as part of being the chair of high tech, which is the Hispanic Technology Exec Council, the focus was on how to bring up more Hispanics, Latinos in C-suite levels in technology. And I used to, a lot of times, folks would come to me and say, gee, how did you break through that glass ceiling? And it's like, I asked. It's like, so I dig into it a little bit more. And they're like, gee, I went through this, certification. I got this skill set. I got, I'm ready. I'm like, okay. So what conversation have you had with your leadership? Did you go and ask them what you want? Did you give them sort of a roadmap and lay out kind of what your aspirations are? Well, I haven't done that quite yet. It's like, well, why? You're asking me, you're giving me all of this. It's like, why aren't you doing that with them? Oh, well, I don't want to get out of my lane, and I don't want to rock the boat. I'm like, then you're probably not ready for the C-suite, because you're going to rock the boat. They're going to expect you to rock the boat. And a lot of times I think, culturally, Latinos are timid. We're humble people. And sometimes, it kind of goes back to even maybe how we were raised. Some of us were raised. It's like, no, mijo, stay in your lane. Don't get out of your lane. You're making good money, $15 an hour. Don't go, it's like, don't go, against the manager. It's like, I'm not going against the manager. If you want to go up in your career, you got to ask. And I give the example of when, Rebecca and John, we had a dinner, and luckily we had 2 glasses of wine or whatever. And so I was a little bit brave. And they said, so what do you want? What do you want to do? I said, I want to be you. Not literally you, but I want to be you. I want to sit in that chair. And you asked me, and I told you what I want. It's like, are you ready? Are you ready for that? Because if you are, we're ready to help you get there. But it's going to come with some challenges. And I said, I'm ready. and that they guided me, they gave me the path, and it wasn't easy, but that's the thing I think, Jason, that I coach people on and mentor them. And I will sponsor you, but I will sponsor you if I see that you're willing to actually, if I'm going to put my name on that, for you, you better deliver, because that's how it was for me, right?
Yeah.
So that's, I think, that from if you want to grow to the C-suite, and I don't remember the second half of
No, it's okay. You touched upon it all, and I'm mindful of time here. I want to make sure that I give other people some time to ask questions as well. But I have a couple more, and you started to touch upon it already, G. And I'll just start with a comment. Knowing you, it's like to think that you also experience the things that the rest of us do too. Like, hey, it is a little nervous to put yourself in that position. To think about G ever being that way is just like, wow. Like we all experience and go through that. I also love what you said about the diversity of experience that you have. One of the things I know I've talked with folks that I've mentored and wanted to go on to sponsor is to tell folks to not allow themselves to be pigeonholed into functional roles. Go and be advocates for yourself to get P&L experience, right? Don't simply, accept being, in a functional role. Get the business experience where you're the decider. And so I think that's really important that you called out. And you also alluded to this, and so my transition, maybe it's not perfect, but you said, hey, people look at me and said, you don't look like somebody who eats a lot of Jack in the Box. And so I won't make a comment on that. Nevertheless, you do come across as a very healthy person. The only way we can be good to others is if we're good with ourselves. We're healthy, both of mind and of body and spirit. How do you do that for yourself? What does that look like for you? What's your routine? I think I don't know if we're finishing up, Mental Health Awareness Month, or we should always be in it, but maybe just talk a little bit about what you do for yourself to keep yourself healthy, holistically.
Yeah. Well, I think it I'll go back to my Navy days, right? Because I always sort of had this, and I grew up doing martial arts. I was, did that when I was, competed nationally when I was a teenager. So I just had that sort of like that, maybe it's a discipline or a rigor. But, I was telling somebody yesterday or day before, they asked me about my routine. And I said, wow, when I was at Cisco, by the time it was 6:15 a.m., I had already worked out, showered, getting ready for breakfast, and then I was getting head out the door. But it's like, if I'm not like, kind of working out, physically fit or working on something, then it just my mind, it just doesn't work right. This morning I was up at 5:15 and I went to the boxing class at 6. And so I mean, that's just helps my energy levels. But I think it's just that rigor. It's always something. And then I have 4 kids, and my 4 kids are my 2 boys just did a Ironman together. So they're also keeping me young, right? So they're like pushing me, hey, old man, how do you get off your ass and blah, 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 And so I'm like, oh, you want to go? Let's go. And so they keep me on my toes too. So I think it's just, it's that mind, body, spirit kind of alignment. And sometimes I get out of phase but there's always, I think, someone to help push me back into phase. And I try to do that with others too, right? Like, hey, try to get that alignment fit, work on your, just do something, right?